So it is Sunday, the 24th of April of 2016. I'm in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, actually facing its side that faces west. So I'm looking east and looking at the western facade of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. Facade's a pretty good word because, you know, it has various meanings, and including putting up a false front. And there's no question that the Unitarian Church of Montreal and numerous other individual Unitarian Universalist churches and the Unitarian Universalist Association, which is an association of approximately 1,000 Unitarian Universalist churches, put up a facade when it comes to Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse of all kinds, both sexual and non-sexual. They also put up a variety of other empty facades, but there's really no question that Unitarian Universalists as a whole in North America put up an empty, meaningless facade about, you know, how they deal with clergy abuse. And when I say clergy abuse, I obviously mean, you know, clergy sexual abuse, which is how clergy abuse is commonly seen. You know, when you say clergy abuse and you don't say sex, people nonetheless immediately think of clergy sex abuse. But I'm taking it into a broader area of non-sexual forms of abuse as well. Verbal abuse, psychological abuse, abuse of power, abuse of authority, and so on. But Unitarian Universalists have their fair share of clergy sex abuse, including such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, to borrow a choice phrase from the Unitarian Universalist Association's Canadian attorney, Stikeman Elliott, the barristers and solicitors litigation lawyer, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, who in June of 2012, in fact Friday, June 1st of 2012, sent me an email containing a PDF file, which was a scan of a legal letter that he had been hired by the Unitarian Universalist Association to have me served with. And in that arrogant and aggressive cease and desist demand letter, amongst other ludicrous accusations, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe said the following words near the end of his two-page letter. Your unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape are defamatory, and they're so defamatory that they constitute the criminal act of blasphemous libel. I did not know what blasphemous libel was. I had to look it up. And essentially, blasphemous libel is Canada's word for blasphemy. And Canada does in fact have a blasphemy law that is in the Canadian Criminal Code. So, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe was accusing me of committing a criminal act. He was saying I was making false and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the Unitarian Universalist Association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. And he was saying that these allegedly false allegations were so defamatory that they amounted to the criminal act of blasphemous libel. Well, a bit of a problem there, because although I did in fact blog about some Unitarian Universalist rapists, one of whom I correctly described as a pedophile rapist because he'd been convicted of raping preteen girls. In other words, his victims were no older than 12 years old at the times that the rapes took place. So Richard Buell of First Parish, Norwell in Massachusetts was what can be properly described as a pedophile rapist. So basically, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe lied when he said that my allegations about pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalists were unfounded and vicious. There was nothing unfounded about them. I got my information from newspaper reports about Reverend Mac Mitchell and Richard Buell, to say nothing of some other Unitarian Universalist rapists or pedophiles, or both, that I was aware of but hadn't actually blogged about. But the few that I did blog about, because it was already public knowledge, and therefore I had no concern about being, accused of libel, ordinary civil libel, by the Unitarian Universalist Association. I thought, I'm on solid ground here. They can't possibly accuse me of libel because there's been newspaper reports about these cases. These people were charged, tried, and convicted. They went to jail. So the Unitarian Universalists have no valid grounds to, accuse me of libel or anything else. Well, I was right that they had no valid grounds. It just never occurred to me that they would be so immoral, so unethical, so batshit crazy, quite frankly, as to pretend that, my blog post about Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell or Richard Buell or both were libelous or slanderous or least of all blasphemous. I mean, as I said, prior to receiving that cease and desist demand letter, I'd never heard the term blasphemous libel. I had no idea that Canada had a blasphemy law included in the Canadian Criminal Code. So what I did, knowing that what I'd written was truthful, in no way unfounded, I just wrote back to Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, who had not identified, any of the blog posts in question. Like, his letter accused me of blasphemous libel, but he didn't say which blog posts, specifically. He just said, you've blogged about this stuff, or you've written this stuff, and it's blasphemous libel, blah, blah, blah. So I wrote back to Maitre Coulombe, saying to him, well, unfortunately, I cannot find any blog posts that match your description of unfounded and vicious allegations, yada, yada, yada. Could you please provide me with the titles of the blog posts in question, or the URL, that is the internet web address, or the date? Give me something so that I can go and have a look and see exactly which blog post you're talking about, so that I can determine, how to deal with the situation. So, I was expecting Maitre Marc-André Coulombe to identify the blog posts that spoke about the Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell and Richard Buell, at which point I would have written back to them and said, well, these guys were convicted. There's nothing unfounded there, Well, that didn't happen. What happened is Maitre Marc-André Coulombe wrote back to me in another arrogant letter and said, and this is a pretty close approximation of what he said, I don't remember the exact words, but he essentially said, your claim not to be able to find the blog posts in question are not credible, and he essentially said, you know where they are, you go find them yourself, kind of thing. So he's essentially calling me a liar. He's essentially saying that, my claims not to be able to find blog posts matching his description are not credible, i.e. they're lacking credibility. I'm a liar. I'm telling falsehoods and lying and so on. Oh, look, I just see some graffiti on the side there. Somebody graffitied the church. Talk about that later, but anyhow, I don't want to get distracted here. I just noticed that graffiti now. Getting back to things, I had to write back to Maitre Marc-André Coulombe and say, well, no, you don't understand, Maitre Coulombe. What I'm saying is I know very well where I've written about a few Unitarian Universalist, pedophiles and rapists. And the pedophiles and rapists that I wrote about were charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. So I don't know where any unfounded and vicious blog posts are, that amount to blasphemous libel, as you're claiming. You show me where those are. And of course I never heard from Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe again. His second letter to me, which came within a few days of the first letter of June 1st, 2012, Friday, June 1st, 2012, was the last letter I ever received. Okay, here come the police. Hopefully we'll just give them a wave. And with any luck, they will wisely stay out of it. And but we'll see. We might have a little chat with the police this morning. It's a possibility, but I haven't had a philosophical discussion with the SPVM since 2014, I think. Oh, no, it might have been early 2015. No, I think it's 2014. I think September 2014 was the last time I had a chat with the SPVM about my protest, because they finally realized, after years of repeatedly interfering in my protest, that everything I'm doing is legal, and that I actually have some very good reasons to be protesting here, and that they've been repeatedly lied to by the leadership and members of the Unitarian Church of Montreal regarding my protest activities. So they tend not to intervene anymore, or do so on very rare occasions. And the last few times that they intervened, they were much more polite and professional than they have been in the past. Which does not mean to say that they were always, rude and disrespectful and not respecting my rights in the past. There were a mixed bag of interactions with the SPVM. There were some which went very well, and there were others which went not well at all. So I'm not saying every intervention that the SPVM was a bad intervention, but there were rather too many that were of an unprofessional nature, that was basically police harassment, police intimidation, misuse of the criminal code, misuse of municipal bylaws, invention of bylaws that don't even exist in efforts to intimidate me into ending the protest. There are actually 3 foolish incidents in 2012, and all 3 of them were recorded in pretty well their entirety from start to finish, and I uploaded those videos to YouTube, and I think it's largely as a result of those 3 incidents in 2012, which were recorded from start to finish, uploaded to YouTube, that the SPVM started realizing, maybe the best thing to do is just let Robin protest and not bother him. But then there were some other incidents in 2014, in the beginning of 2014, in fact the first Sunday of 2014, I was assaulted by Margot Ellis, former president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I was protesting outside the church on the first Sunday in January 2014. I believe it was the 4th of January, if I'm not mistaken. And I was walking in this direction. I saw Margot Ellis approaching, about where those people are now. I moved to my right to give her room to pass on my left. At the time, there was a signpost, so I stepped around here to give her room to pass on my left, as this woman is about to do. So as you can see, she had plenty of room to pass on my left. But no, Margot Ellis barged right into me, gave me an elbow and a body check that was so forceful that it knocked me completely off my feet, and I landed on my ass in the snow. So she assaulted me. And there's no way it was an accident. There's no way that she didn't know what she was doing. She looked me straight in the eye before doing it. She could see there's plenty of room to pass on the right, but no, she wanted to get her digs in, as it were, and she had previously said, "I'm going to get you," kind of thing in the past. In fact, those are exact words, "I'm going to get you." I remember that clearly. This is going back years. So, years ago, Margot Ellis had said, "I'm going to get you." And in fact, there was a previous incident, actually one of the good ones, one of the good incidents where the police had behaved in a very polite, professional manner and had handled it correctly, was a false report against me. And I have very reasonable grounds to believe that Margot Ellis was involved in that false report to the police, which I believe goes back to I think maybe 2010. Now that I think it was going back a while. So I think that was one of the ways she tried to get me. So this time she got me by assaulting me. And it wasn't the worst assault in the world. You know, I wasn't seriously hurt, but I was given a good body check and knocked on my ass. So I'm the kind of guy, you know, it's not an emergency. I'm not going to run and phone 911 right away. I don't like to clog up the court system with bullshit cases, unlike the Unitarian Church of Montreal. So I said, well, you know, let's think about this a bit. Let's decide what to do. So I did not immediately call in a report of the assault. I just debated what to do. And I must say, I debated out loud, like I'm doing right now. I'm narrating stuff. So I debated, you know, I thought out loud about what to do. And it's all recorded, it's all on YouTube. And I decided, you know, what I'll do is, you know, during the week, I'll phone the police and I'll say what happened. And I'll just ask them, well, what do you think? You know, what do you think's the thing to do here? You know, should we press assault charges against Margot Ellis, or should we just let that one go, whatever? You know, let the police, you know, not necessarily decide, but at least give me their point of view before I decided what I wanted to do. You know? And so what happened is, you know, I did nothing. I didn't call the police. I protested, continued to protest for about an hour after that. And as I'm leaving, after I've packed up all my picket signs, after I've shit. Okay, I thought the video had ended, but no. So we're still recording. So after I'd packed up, after I'd shut off my camera, a police car pulls up in front of the church. And so I just waved to the cop, said I'm leaving, you know, see you later. Because, you know, in my mind, there was no reason for them to be there. And he said, no, I have to talk with you. You essentially is detaining me. You know, he said, I'm here for a reason and I have to talk to you. So he started